In the dead of night, no one was watching, no one was listening, except for one girl who in a single instant turned fear into courage and exposed the truth. He wasn't supposed to be there that night, at least that's what they told him. A billionaire standing alone in a dark alley surrounded by three men who had already decided who he was and what he deserved. No one asked questions, no one gave him a chance. And just when it seemed like the night would end in silence and violence, someone unexpected stepped in, a black teenage girl, watching, calculating, refusing to look away. What she did next didn't just stop them, it exposed something far deeper. But the real question is, why did it take her to change everything? By the time the city lights dimmed and the streets emptied, Marcus Hale had already lived 100 lives in one. To most people, he was just another wealthy man, quiet, distant, untouchable. A billionaire who built everything from nothing, who moved through rooms where people shook his hand but never really saw him. Success had given him power, but it hadn't erased the way people looked at him when he was alone. That night, he wasn't surrounded by cameras or security. No suits, no drivers, just a simple walk, a shortcut he'd taken before without a second thought. The alley was narrow, the air thick with silence, the kind that makes you feel like you're being watched even when you're not. Marcus kept walking, unaware that on the other side of the street three men had already noticed him. To them, he wasn't a success story. He wasn't a billionaire. He was just another target, someone who didn't belong, someone easy to corner, someone they thought they understood without knowing anything at all. And as their footsteps slowly followed him into the darkness, one thing became clear: this wasn't going to be just another walk home. The first sign was the silence behind him breaking. Footsteps. Slow at first, then matching his pace. Marcus didn't turn around immediately. He had learned not to react too quickly, to stay calm, to stay controlled. But the sound didn't fade. It grew louder, heavier, deliberate. When he finally glanced back, he saw them, three men spreading out just enough to block the narrow path behind him. He stopped. For a brief second, no one spoke. Just a stare, cold, measuring, already decided. One of them stepped forward, his voice low but sharp. He didn't ask who Marcus was, he didn't need to. The judgment was already there, written across his face like a conclusion reached long before this moment. They closed in. Marcus felt it instantly, that familiar, suffocating shift. The kind where you're no longer a person, just a label, just an assumption. His suit didn't matter, his success didn't matter. In that alley, none of it existed, only their version of him did. "Wrong place," one of them muttered, almost amused. Marcus tried to keep his voice steady, calm, controlled. He told them there was nothing here, nothing worth their time, but they didn't hear him. Or maybe they chose not to, because this wasn't about money, not really. It was about power, about proving something without ever saying it out loud. A hand shoved his shoulder. Not hard enough to knock him down, just enough to test him. Marcus didn't fight back. He couldn't, not because he was weak, but because he understood the risk. One wrong move, one moment of resistance, and this could turn into something far worse. His mind raced, calculating every outcome, every possibility, and none of them ended well. Then came the words. Accusations that didn't make sense, assumptions thrown like facts. They spoke over him, around him, never to him, like he wasn't even there, like he didn't deserve to explain himself. Another shove. This one harder. Marcus stumbled back, the wall catching him. His heart pounded, not from fear alone but from something deeper, frustration, anger. The quiet realization that no matter how far he had come, moments like this could still strip everything away in seconds. And then a voice cut through the tension. Stop. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. All three men turned. At the edge of the alley, barely stepping into the light, stood a teenage girl, young still. Watching everything with an intensity that didn't match her age. She didn't look scared, she didn't hesitate, instead she stepped closer. And something about that, something in the way she carried herself, the way her eyes locked onto them without fear, made the air shift. Marcus noticed it, so did they. Because suddenly this wasn't as simple as it had been a few seconds ago, and whatever was about to happen next, none of them were ready for it. The tension snapped in an instant. One of the men stepped toward the girl, his patience gone, his voice rising with a sharp edge. He told her to walk away, to mind her business. But she didn't flinch, not even for a second. Her eyes stayed locked on them, steady, unshaken, like she had already seen this moment play out before. And maybe she had. Because when he reached out, whether to push her back or silence her, she moved. Fast, not reckless, not panicked, precise. In a single motion, she shifted her stance, redirecting his arm just enough to throw him off balance. He stumbled, caught off guard, not by the force, but by the fact that she didn't hesitate. The alley froze. The other two men exchanged a look, their confidence cracking for the first time. This wasn't supposed to happen. She stepped forward again, placing herself between them and Marcus. Not bigger, not stronger, but somehow unmovable. Enough, she said quietly, and something about that word, something about the calm certainty behind it hit harder than anything else. The men laughed at first, tried to recover. One of them moved again, angrier now, determined to take control back, but the moment he stepped in, she didn't back away. She held her ground, her voice cutting through the darkness with a clarity that echoed beyond the alley. She called it out, not the attack, not the threat, but the reason behind it. She spoke about the way they looked at him, the way they had already decided who he was before he said a single word. She exposed it, raw, uncomfortable, undeniable. And for the first time, the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy because deep down they knew she was right. Marcus felt it too, that shift. That moment where the power in the alley didn't belong to fear anymore, but to truth. And just like that, the balance changed. The men stepped back, not defeated, but uncertain. Shaken in a way they couldn't explain, because this wasn't just a confrontation anymore. It was something they couldn't ignore and couldn't control. And in that moment, standing in the middle of that alley, one truth became impossible to escape. This was never just about a robbery. The alley didn't erupt into violence again. Instead, it unraveled in silence. One by one, the men stepped back, not with apologies, not with understanding, but with something quieter, uncertainty. The kind that lingers long after a moment has passed. Within seconds, they were gone, disappearing into the same darkness they had tried to use against him. Marcus didn't move right away. He stood there, catching his breath, his heart still racing, not just from what almost happened, but from what it meant. All his success, all the years of building a life that was supposed to protect him, and yet, in that alley, none of it mattered. Except her. The girl turned to leave as if it was nothing, as if she hadn't just shifted the entire outcome of that night. Marcus called out, his voice quieter now, almost uncertain. He thanked her not just for stepping in, but for seeing him when others refused to. She paused, and for a moment her expression softened, not with pride, not with surprise, but with recognition. Like she understood this wasn't rare, like she knew this moment wasn't just his, because it was. He made it home that night, but something had changed, not broken, but revealed. A truth that success couldn't hide, that money couldn't erase, that silence only allowed to grow. And somewhere in the city, that same story was playing out again. Different faces, different streets. Same assumptions, same silence. This wasn't just about one alley, one night, one man. It was about how quickly a person can be reduced to a stereotype, and how powerful it is when someone refuses to accept it. So the question is, if she hadn't stepped in, who would have?